Hello everyone. I hope this message finds you fit and fine. Recently, India and UAE have signed SEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Now, common questions are, what is SEPA? What India stands to gain from this? And what dimensions are important for you? So let's start. So these are the headlines. SEPA between India and UAE. Just take a look over the location of UAE. It is strategically located in this Gulf region. You know that India is having a dedicated West Asia policy. And the point is, UAE is also having Look East policy. So it means our West Asia policy and their Look East policy are complementary to each other, right? Apart from this, our interest in Central Asia, this region, make UAE an important hub. Now you may ask, sir, why UAE is considered as important for Central Asia? Because UAE has been used as a transshipment hub. It means whether you have to do trade from Central Asia to Africa or into Europe, UAE has been developed as a transshipment. Transshipment means first goods would reach UAE and from there they would transfer into other areas. So in this context, if India wants to trade with Central Asian market, then don't you think having a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with UAE will give edge to Indian products to enter into Central Asian market? And same is the case when it comes to African market. As we are talking about UAE, but what is UAE? Is it a nation? Yes, it is a nation, but it is not a country like India, right? It is a federation of some emirates. So it is an elective monarchy, a different system. And it is having these 7 emirates. Names are given, and among them Abu Dhabi is the largest emirat and the capital of UAE. Now you need to understand these important dimensions. Starting from win-win. This word is being used in news. How it is a win-win situation for both. Number 1, UAE wants to diversify its revenue stream. Traditionally, UAE has been focusing on being among the largest reserves of crude oil and natural gas, but they also know that time will change, and that is why they want to engage in trade in different areas to secure their economic prospects in future. And as India is having a large market as well as skilled labor, we can say that we are moving towards using our human capital. So in this context, UAE stands to gain. And when it comes to India, you know that India is focusing on Make in India program. So it means we want our products means to get boost and that they get placement in international market. In this case, UAE is an important hub. Then why SEPA? Please understand, when I use SEPA, it means it is going to give us access not just in goods sector, it is going to give access in along with goods in service as well as investments. And that is why the word comprehensive is used. Otherwise, we could have used, India and UAE have signed FTA in goods, but that would be limited to goods only. And you know that India's GDP, the largest contribution is coming from service sector and prominent being IT sector. Right? And in this case, if we are having this access into UAE market through SEPA, don't you think we can get boost in terms of export of services? Right? I said geostrategic is important dimension. You have also clear about this fact that location matters. Right? UAE is important for us not just because of natural gas reserves and oil and market. It is also important for us because it is established in this area which is going to connect Central Asia and African market too, right? Then there is this word being used, permanent safeguard mechanism. The major, you can say, deal breaker in SEPA, wherever SEPA did not get formalized. For example, India-Sri Lankan case. In India-Sri Lanka, we have FTA. But India has been pursuing SEPA, but Sri Lanka was not agreeing. The reason is, Sri Lanka was having this, fear that as of now, the trade balance is in favor of India. And if we get into SEPA, then it will lead to import surge in Sri Lanka. Now, then why UAE is not having similar fears? How this important agreement got finalized just in 88 days? What about fear of import surge? So those who are wondering what is this import surge, my friends, consider that we are in agreement with UAE that now on 1,000 goods, import duty when it was 5%, now it will be 0%. What does it mean? Now these Indian goods will be sold into Indian market at 0% import duty. Don't you think it will make price of Indian goods in UAE market cheaper? And if things are cheaper and they are of quality, don't you think it will increase the demand? And if increases the demand, it means it will increase trade from India. It will give us revenues. So India stands to gain. But what about UAE? When UAE products are also going to get same advantage, then it may lead to import surge. And if it happens, what is going to happen with our domestic manufacturers? So to protect the interest of domestic manufacturers, there's a mechanism of permanent safeguard. Means in any category of product, at any point of time, if our domestic manufacturers' livelihood is under threat, then in that case, we can impose some import duties on UAE products so that these products will become, you can say, a bit more expensive, right? So that Indian products stands a chance to have their market intact, right? This is permanent safeguard mechanism. That's a good, you can say, point here. Now, strict rules of origin. This is another fear in SEPA, in other SEPAs, but we have included this strict rules of origin. What does it mean? Consider that we have this SEPA with UAE, but what if Chinese products, those who are not having this SEPA facility with India, it means we impose import duty on Chinese product. What if Chinese companies establish warehouses in UAE and from there they bring these products into Indian market saying that this trade is coming from UAE? Now tell me, do you think we should give 0% access, 0% duty access to these products as well? No, because it is like abusing this India-UAE SEPA. And considering this in mind, we have included strict rules of origin. It means whenever this facility is going to be given, it will be asked, we need proof where these products originated, so that it remains this trade actually benefit UAE and Indian market players. Smart move, right? Trade with Africa, I have told you that UAE is a transshipment hub. Many companies, bring their products in UAE in warehouses and then they transfer it into Africa. Along with this, many African players come into UAE into different expos and they then actually place order with regard to the needs they have. So in this case, Indian companies stands a great chance now. Now this fact you need to remember that India is third largest trading partner of UAE as of now. Second largest export destination. Okay, so this makes UAE and India partnership more important. So new trade and investment opportunities will open, right? As I told you, goods, services and investment, all three components are included in this. We are also focusing on spurring the growth of infrastructure investment after the SEPA. We are going to establish joint ventures. So free flow of goods, services, people, technology are going to happen. In 5 years, we are targeting $100 billion worth market trade, right? And when it comes to services, $15 billion. So these data can be, you can say, you should remember this. 100 billion, 15 billion with services in 5 years. I think it is quite easy to remember. Access to much larger African and Arab market, already told you, due to this geostrategic location. As of now, 26 billion worth of Indian products are having this 5% duty, right? I told you around 1,000 products having 5% duty, which will be reduced to 0. So India stands to gain, right? 90% of Indian exports will have duty-free access to Emirat, which will cover goods, services and digital trade. Now have a look over this data. quite optimistic one. In 1970s, our trade with UAE was around $180 million. And in the last data in 2018, it was $59 billion. So it means it is already on progressive path, right? We have 973 flights on weekly basis between India and UAE. And we are having this investment in sectors like construction, power, services, metal, and computer software and hardware. Apart from this, you should also know that trade can only, be pushed when we also make use of our soft power. And that is why a cultural engagement arrangement has also been made by both the governments. In energy partnership, we are also having convergence that both are going to focus on this low carbon future. And you know that UAE is one of India's major energy suppliers, and UAE invests in strategic petroleum reserve program through crude oil, so that we are having security when it comes to our crude reserve. Climate action program, we are focusing on green hydrogen production, and we have already made a task force, joint hydrogen task force for that. B2B and public-private partnerships have been pushed, and we see that after the SEPA, the efforts are going to be multiplied. We are going to invest in emerging technologies like agri-tech, edu-tech, med-tech, chip design, green energy, more focus on skill cooperation, food security. We are already having engagement in food security, agriculture and market, health cooperation. Post-pandemic, it becomes more important, right? So you should also keep in mind that when it comes to exports from India, the key areas of export are gems and jewelry, petroleum products, and electrical equipments. There are three most important exports from India to UAE. What are these three? Petroleum products, gems and jewelry, and electrical equipments. Now, you also know that India is considered as pharmacy of the world. It means we have prowess when it comes to providing essential medical supplies to the world. We have proved during the pandemic. So it means after the SEPA, we can push on export of medicines to UAE. Number one, right? Number two, India is also having advantage in chemical exports. So now we can actually tap the potential of chemical export too, right? So these are going to be the prominent one. Apart from this, defense and security cooperation is also going to be the area, because we know that we want to collaborate with you can say convergences with the power in Arabian Sea. So in that case, UAE becomes an important power, right? Now you should also look at UAE not just from the point of view of SEPA, important from trade perspective, right? It is not just about trade. It is about a strategic interest which India and UAE are looking at. When it comes to West Asian politics, changes have happened in recent past. You must have read about Abraham Accord. And you also know about USA and India converging when it comes to future of Middle East on so many points, right? So in this context, this particular partnership is not just a trade partnership, it is more than that. It is going to give a desired boost in trade as well as geopolitical importance which India wanted in this Gulf region. It is also going to give access to the other GCC countries, Gulf countries which India is in need. This PDF will be available in Telegram group Shashank Tyagi for you. If you have any doubt, you can shoot me a message. I'll be happy to help you out. Take care.
क्लास लगा दे स्टडी की बस आ गए